I have been dabbling in clay sculpture for the last year, and one of my favourite artistic endeavours is to sculpt our favourite Beelzebub, the protagonist of the tales. Now Beelzebub had horns which he lost when he was exiled, but what sort? Goat horns or antler horns, cow horns or spiked horns? This was my debate when making the models of Beelzebub. What were his horns like before he was exiled? Spiralled horns, spiked horns, pointy horns? The origins of Beelzebub, meaning Lord of the Flies or Lord of Baal. The etymology, Baal means to be lord over, Zebub means to come and go, like a fly comes and goes about its way. The Lord who comes and goes, like a fly. In the Old Testament, Beelzebub is the god of the Philistines, but the god Beelzebub does not make an appearance as such. He is just an oracle that is visited in 2 Kings 1:2-3. Now Ahaziah had fallen through the lattice of his upper room in Samaria and injured himself, so he sent messengers saying to them, "Go and consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, to see if I will recover from this injury." But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Go up and meet the messengers of the king of Samaria and ask them, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going off to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron?" In some cases, Beelzebub is said to bring flies with him when he is summoned. In others, that he is evoked to rid the people of the flies. But this isn't from the Bible. This is from other theologians and tales. In the New Testament, Beelzebub is an evil spirit that Jesus came to cast out. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? If I by Beelzebub cast out demons, by whom do your sons cast them out? For this reason they will be your judges. In Milton's Paradise Lost, Beelzebub is Satan's lieutenant. But in many instances, Beelzebub is just another name for the devil, like Satan or Lucifer. How did the devil Beelzebub get his horns? Why is the biblical Beelzebub as a devil described with 2 horns? Nobody is too sure, possibly from the pagan god Pan or Cronus, or Herne the horn god. It does seem that in a lot of ancient cultures, horned men or horned animal men are associated with the underworld or the otherworld. Pan came from the other world, where he could communicate with the animals and little folk, such as fairies and pixies. They usually depict these creatures or gods with horns as having virility, great power and strength, masculinity. Here we have a picture of Pan with his little stub horns, or goat horns comes from Greek mythology, and he has counterparts in many others. From waist down he is a goat, and waist up human, but with the added goat horns. He lives in the forest and is associated with nature and fertility. Some historians say he is the son of Hermes. One of the pagan horn gods was the Celtic god Cronus, whose name means horned one. As a god, Cronus was powerful and respected. His horns denote his importance. Cronus, the Celtic horned god who is master of all the animals, has a full set of antlers, a snake belt. Horns and snake go together quite a lot in ancient times. Every deer and stag has the Cronus spirit, and Cronus was a protector of animals, not a hunter. He protected them from the hunters. Beelzebub often complains that we like eating meat too much. He often talks about not killing and eating animals. Hooves and horns eat plants and grass. In these ancient times, horns or a set of antlers also represented nature of all life. In the cycle of life, the stags grow antlers in the spring, the time of renewal, the return of life. Then along comes summer and a set of wonderful strong antlers to show off with, fight with, seduce with. Then along comes autumn and the antlers are worn and begin to fall off as the animals prepare to retreat for the coming winter. And when that does arrive, the antlers are gone, dead with season. Then along comes spring again. As Christianity spread over the Western world, some folk were reluctant to give up their old pagan gods, and some of those old pagan gods were horned. So to remedy this little difficulty, the Christians slowly put out their devil stories, and that devils began to resemble some of the old pagan gods. Now those horned gods had new names, and now were said to be devils, usually of the supernatural kind, come to create havoc and menace, to tempt the good from God. Gurdjieff spent a lot of time in France, and he is known to have visited the caves in Lascaux, France, where there are some prehistoric cave paintings. I wonder if he ever saw this. It is a cave painting found at Traffray in Arigne, France. It is often referred to as the sorcerer. Very little is known about it, but as you can see, it is a standing figure, animal-like or human-like, a mixture of both, with a large set of horns on its head. Some wonder if it was a representation of a god, or maybe a shaman dancing. It is open to interpretation, and as you can see, it is very old. Staying in ancient times, let's turn to Egypt, ancient Egypt and the old gods. During Gurdjieff's time, there were many discoveries in Egyptology. The world was fascinated by all the tombs and the statues and jewellery that was being discovered, and we were getting a better understanding of the old gods. Hathor, the Egyptian goddess, usually represented with cow horns. Sometimes she is human in form, sometimes as a cow, but she always has the horns. Between the horns is the solar disk telling us she's the solar goddess. Hathor means the house of Horus. She houses the sun god Horus. Actually, this is the most recognised interpretation of her name, but there are these scholars who suggest other meanings to it. Hathor is one of the few, if not the only god who gets a pylon all to herself. That's how important she is. She is the divine feminine goddess, and she displays that principle with her horns. The masculine divine principle can be symbolised in a number of ways in ancient Egypt, by the sun or the snake or a set of horns, but these are different to Hathor's smooth cow horns. These are flat with a slight tweak, ram's horns. There are many depictions of Hathor with her horns and a sun sitting between them, the union of the masculine represented as the sun with the feminine shown by the cow horns. The snake that represents the masculine is seen in the uraeus. The uraeus is regarded as a royal symbol, but it also has mystical connotations. It is the connection to enlightenment and is regarded as the Eye of Ra, the top male Egyptian god. The kundalini, the energy usually depicted in snake form, rides up the back, and when enlightenment occurs, that snake comes out the third eye. The ram's horns, seen on Ammon, represent the male force, and are seen on many male Egyptian gods. So the three-brained beings in Taos have horns to show they are developed. So why horns? Why not a single horn? Why didn't G give Beelzebub a horn in the third eye? There are not many creatures with one horn, especially in the third eye area. The horns are atop the head, the snake from the third eye. The unicorn is a unique creature. The mythology states that there is only ever one unicorn in the world at any time. There are many tales about the unicorn, usually on how to capture it. You need a virgin and some soldiers hidden in the bushes. In tales, the humans use the horn of a pyramidal as a powder, once ground, a remedy. But it is not said what these creatures relate to, though Beelzebub says the beings round them refer to them as one of the species of deer. Does Gurdjieff mean the unicorn? A unicorn's horn was much sought after, as it was said to be the antidote to all poisons. In the Old Testament, the unicorn comes across as a strong, powerful beast, usually mentioned as a creature able to anoint holiness or direct one to holiness with its horn. But in some old Jewish tales, the unicorn is portrayed as a menacing beast out to scare and to punish the faithless. When the first man, Adam, lived in the gardens of Eden, God blessed him with a special task, to name the animals. Adam's first animal to give a name to was apparently a unicorn. In esoteric circles, the unicorn may well have been a symbol for an enlightened one, a man or a woman who has been able to open and operate their third eye, just like the snake rising from Pharaoh's forehead in ancient Egypt was displaying the awakened kundalini of the king. These people would have found a path to dedicate themselves to. They would have discovered a teaching, maybe with a guru, maybe by themselves, and followed it through its many trials and tribulations till they reached their ultimate illuminating goal. But is the unicorn only showing the masculine energy? Where is the feminine energy? And could this be why Christianity is a patriarchal system? Only one horn, so only one form of energy. Is Christianity against the male and female energies coming together? And is this why devils are depicted with two horns? Because Christianity doesn't want the feminine in its kingdom. This is just a suggestion. But then along came Eliphas Levi, who drew a new symbol for esoteric study. In 1854, Levi wrote Transcendental Magic, Its Doctrine and Ritual, a book on occult philosophy. The cover diagram for this book was called the Goat of Mendes, often referred to as Baphomet. It is a picture of one figure that is both male and female, an androgynous figure, hermaphrodite. It sits cross-legged with hooven feet showing from its trousers, or is it a blanket or a skirt? A sword or a wand entwined with snakes sits up from the crotch. It has ample female breasts and a set of dark but big bird-like wings half open. The right arm points upwards with the index and middle finger of the hand pointing up together to a crescent moon that is white upon a dark cloud. The last two fingers of the hand are bent with thumb folded over them. The left arm points down, the hand in the same position, except the thumb is released pointing out. The moon is there again, but reversed and shaded dark. The head above the shoulders is that of a goat, a hairy goat too. A pentagram is on its forehead, and two large horns rise from either side of the top of its head. In the centre of the head protrudes a horn with a flaming spout, or as Levi describes it, a flaming intelligence. Levi writes a lot about this artwork. It seems to have many meanings, a drawing that has to be interpreted to understand. He discusses the balance displayed in it, for example mercy over justice through the Kabbalistic signs, a symbol of light uniting all atop of the head. Why a goat's figure? Why not a human head? Levi writes that the ugly head of his picture expresses the horror of the sinner, reminding me of Gurdjieff and the horror of the situation. In many cultures, a goat is regarded as a fertility symbol. It is a sturdy animal able to survive on grass and can be found alive almost anywhere on land. Those that are farmed give wool and milk amongst their many uses. The ancient priests of the Egyptians sacrificed a goat once a year on behalf of the Egyptian population. This goat slaughter was said to cleanse the people of their sins, so they could start the new year afresh, but it all sounds a bit like black magic to me. So back to the goat of Mendes, where we have a male-female figure, a black moon and a white moon, an up-pointing hand and a down-pointing hand, and so on. In this picture, Levi is trying to explain that all things are equal, all things have opposites, and to give anybody interested in the ways of magic the symbolism to decipher what life should be and what one is attaining to create balance within and to understand the balance without. And so it is not the Satan depicting picture that so many people believe it to be. The picture has become widely used in all kinds of subjects such as rock and roll and Satanism, its original meaning getting lost in misuse in time. In Robert Temple's book, The Sirius Mystery, the Dogon tribe of Mali in West Africa have been visited by a fishman-type creature who gives them information about the stars, planets and other worlds in the universe. These visitors tell the Dogon people that there are 6 planets with other types of humanoid species. One of these species is winged, another has horns on their head. This skull was found in Pennsylvania. Maybe they have already been visiting us. Now, we don't know the exact details of why Beelzebub was exiled, but we know it was when he was young and when he was employed on the Sun Absolute, and he somehow interfered with the running of his endlessness's realm. In the Apocrypha and the books of Enoch, it is the angels who cause a rebellion in the heavens against God, because they don't like the changing that are happening, that's us, humans, that arrived on their land. Both our Beelzebub in the tales and the angels in the biblical tradition were thrown out of their God's kingdom. Now Beelzebub lost his horns on his exile, whereas the Old Testament devil lost his wings on his exile. Beelzebub's friends and accomplices were also exiled, as were all the angels that were associated with Lucifer in the uprising. It is not until the last chapter, chapter 47, that Beelzebub gets his horns back, and this is because of the pardon granted to Beelzebub from above. His horns will be returned to him. Beelzebub has been forgiven of his sins. The venerable archangel has brought this message, and he relays it in front of everybody. He then asks for anybody willing to partake in the ritual to return the horns to Beelzebub. Everybody wished to help, and so with the help of a sacred rod, everybody contributes by all renouncing certain particles of their own horns. This causes horns to grow up in Beelzebub's head. The virility and degree of reason of beings of your nature are defined and manifested by the horns on your head, chapter 47 tells us. The number of forks defines gradation, the sacred measure of reason, and of course Beelzebub gets to 5, reason of the sacred Pod Kulad, the last gradation of being. For what follows is Akland, and Akland, the highest one can attain to, perfection. Beelzebub is nearly there, not quite, almost, just one step away. Beelzebub, our favourite, now has a full set of horns with 5 forks on them. I wonder how Gurdjieff pictured it. Well, these days Beelzebub is another name for the devil, and the devil has many names, and Lucifer is one of them. In the tales he is often referred to as the arch-cunning Lucifer, but in the biblical books, Lucifer originally meant the light bringer. Here's hoping that these tales will bring a light upon ourselves.